Boom. Boom. Here we go. Here we go, everybody. We're live. I hope everyone's doing fabulous tonight. It's Monday night. We have an amazing teacher, artist, freaking model, male model. Aaron Limonick, dude. How's it going, man?
Chippendales, dude. Let's get that. Let's get that right. Chippendales
Yeah,
calendars only, dude.
I heard you were like the secondary cast for what's that movie with Channing Tatum, the stripper movie.
Oh, Magic Mike.
Magic Mike, exactly. You're like the secondary cast. That's what I heard. Is it true?
Well, you're my Hollywood connection on that one, dude. So if you can, get me in touch with the right people, I'll be game for that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I might. We'll see how it goes. Well, we have Aaron here today. We're
Hello,
gonna
everyone.
we're gonna talk mad stuff, like Monday night shenanigans. I don't know what we're gonna talk about really. One of the things obviously we could get out of the way right now is how's your freaking class going, dude? It's been
It's been
when we released in February, right? I think.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
several months back. It's been going great. Great progress from the students. It's really great to see, people's growth in such a short amount of time. That's why I dig doing it so much because people do really they get, it sounds like that's not a lot of mileage, 10 weeks, but you really do see some good progress in that amount of time. So, yeah, I really like doing it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen quite a good progress there. From students and some good stories coming up. Just making a living and um, taking the principles of your class and putting it into their portfolio. Yeah, that stuff is good, man. Like if you go to Aaron's gallery, if you go to learnsquare.com and browse through the course gallery. If you go to the actual course page, I'll paste that in actually and look at some of the homework. It's freaking amazing. Yeah, people are like getting that, you know, getting that knowledge out of you.
But here's what I think the reason why I think the class is good is because a lot of stuff is very technically oriented now. A lot of it is about learning the new software, learning the new render, learning the new it's technologically based because there are so many amazing tools out right now that it's very easy to neglect your foundation skills and your design skills. And someone like yourself is someone that it's very easy to think that you're like a technical dude and that everything is all 3D based and everything
Hmm.
is just it's very easy to make that assumption. But having worked with you for many years alongside, the reason why your stuff looks so dope is because of your design skills. Like you could put those tools in anybody's hands and say, all right, now do a piece, but it wouldn't look like Maciej. Like that
Right.
is because of your knowledge and your design skills, and that design skills come from obviously from learning design. You have your own path of how you learn that stuff, but for most people, mileage is really the way to learn it, and just practicing foundation design stuff. So
Yeah, you have to know the foundation. Like but without foundation, it all falls apart real quick. I actually had this conversation before. I think with Eitan when we talked about some of the stuff that is being posted on online, whether it's like DeviantArt or ArtStation. You see it
hmm
like that. I think the times are changing a little bit because like even a year or two ago, you could find like a ton of like photo bashing and uh 3D kit bashing, renders, and all of them were like you could tell like, oh my god, this is not looking great because the tool is there, it's easy, but the foundation isn't, like the lighting and the composition, none of that is working.
hmm Another great example, if you were to take Vitaly Bulgarov's kit bash pieces and you say, "Oh, there you go. You buy all these amazing robot parts and all these amazing well-designed pieces," and then you tell someone, "All right, go make a robot." Anyone can buy those pieces. Anybody can
Yeah.
have them, but they're not going to make a cool robot unless they know the foundation of the construction of how stuff is put together and why those pieces, why he designed those pieces that way. And it's because he's good at design. So
Hmm.
there are many ways to learn design. You can learn design without sketching, but to me, it boils it down to what do you really know when you take away all those other tools and you just say like, all right, like just sketch a robot really quick. Like what shapes come out of your head, or what are you looking at for reference? Like what is your process? It just takes away all the ability to hide behind some of those other things, and you just kind of boil down to what do you really know about this stuff. And to me it was a scary battle when I first started because there's just so much to learn, but
Hmm.
you get better and better the more mileage you put in, and I think you start seeing really good results if you put in the time.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. I remember I was shying away from like using any tools that were deemed as cheating for like the longest time. I think there used to be a time between, and I'm pretty sure you witnessed it as well. Because when did you start? I can't remember when did you start
uh,
working.
I think we were around the same time. Like for me it was like 2004.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly same time then. You remember that like between 2004 and say 2008, everyone who was using photos was like a devil.
I do remember that. That's some
Yeah.
hilarious stuff there.
And yet like the pro artists, like the best artists we know, like Mullins and Dylan Cole just didn't give a fuck. They were just like, okay, we're
Oh
just
yeah.
gonna use that and not even talk about it. I remember someone found out on one of the images that Craig Mullins done for, I think it was for Fallout, one of the Fallout games. He did
Hmm.
like this amazing painting, and someone found like all the references that he used and like put together like a collage. Oh my god, the legend is done. Like just like shitting on Craig, and yet like and saying like, oh, this is so easy. Now I see it's super easy. And then when people asked him, hey, do it. Of
Yeah, if it's
course, the
that easy,
reply,
then if it was that easy, then you would be Craig Mullins right now.
exactly. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how those the times change though. Like it's actually for good because people now think about those things as tools rather than like cheating.
Yeah,
Finally, that's
yeah.
changing.
It's just whatever you can do to be employed, have a job, do good work, make take the things that you struggle with and
Mm,
use tools to kind of push yourself past that and focus on the important stuff, which again to me is the design part of it.
yeah,
That's the important stuff. And whatever gets you there faster, I think, is a win because you're going to do cooler work and you're going to have more interesting images out of it.
yeah, it's true. I gotta mention real quick that Aaron's class has open seats for mentorship. So if you guys still thinking about learning directly from Aaron, just hearing his voice of wisdom laid upon your artwork and your homework submissions, that's now's your time. um, but yeah, I have a question to you.
Hmm.
Because we all agree that foundation is critical. But I I remember when you joined Naughty Dog and seeing your work before and then as you were working on Naughty Dog, how you were progressing. Um, you were always basing everything on foundation. I've seen you starting with like black and white sketches very often on a lot of your artworks and sketching out the ideas. I think out of everyone working there, like me, Aton, Nick, and John, and yourself, and Ashley, and then Hyung was mostly characters, but and Ashley as well. But from the environment team, like you were pretty much like the king of black and white sketches. Um, and my question is like now as you progress and obviously learn new tools and you get to jump into 3D and learn those new tools and new ways of developing stuff. Do you ever find yourself like not struggling by the amount of knowledge you have to absorb, but just struggling by the amount of different tools that are available at your fingertips, and almost like everything seems to be like this one must have. There seems to be a trend to me that when you watch like a lot of tutorials that are coming out, they're showing, like, exposing how great those tools are, and they're
Hmm.
amazing. Like I've watched Jama Jurbaev's video on World Creator, which is
Hmm.
basically a version of World Machine, right? Just a little easier to use.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, like you can do awesome shit with that real quick, and then but that's again like another $300 software, another like couple of hours of learning, and like, and then there's Blender, and then there is V-Ray and Octane and Maya and 3ds Max and Houdini for particles and After Effects for putting things together. Like, do you find yourself to be a little overwhelmed with that shit, or you don't really care and start try to focus um on like one thing?
Well, I learn for me personally, I don't shy away from learning new stuff, but it has to be worth it to learn. I don't just learn something just to learn it because I'm bored with,
Yeah.
whatever 3D program. Like I don't need to, and this is just this is just my personal opinion. Like a lot of people do it differently, but like, um, I'll learn something when I see the value in it, when I think, oh my God, this is going to completely change my ability to do my work. My work is going to literally be different now because I have this ability to do so much more, so much faster.
Hmm.
Like for example, if you know 3D Max already and everyone's telling you, no, 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 it's not about that. It's about Cinema 4D. Well, I mean, there may be some advantages to switching, but is it going to make your work that different, or is it just another thing? Like
Yeah.
for example, if you just know a 3D program and you don't know any sculpting program, you don't know ZBrush, you don't know 3D Coat, you don't know anything. Now, I would say that puts you at a disadvantage because when you learn a sculpting program, any sculpting program is better than none.
Yeah.
I would say that changes your game in a major, major way because now you can make things that would be so much more difficult to model by hand. You can make them in minutes. You can make a
Hmm.
spaceship in minutes, literally. Like depending on, again, this is comes back to how good are you at designing stuff? How well do you know how to do that? But the tool is there to physically do it. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're the best Moto modeler ever or the best 3D Max modeler ever, or if you're Tor Frick or you're one of these people that's crazy fast and amazing. You're still gonna be. It still takes time to build the polygons and to make things sub D and to make things clean. But if you're just a concept artist and you're not trying to make a production level model and you just need to get the image out there, then that would be an example of where something like a sculpting program would be a massive advantage for you. So to me, when I see what people can do with something and I say, okay, that's going to literally totally change my game, then that's become something that's a priority for me to learn. If it's something that there's a marginal difference where it's like a 10% advantage, like it's not going to completely make my work look different, it's going to be, like you said, extra learning, extra time. There's money involved in it, and it can actually bog down your workflow.
Yeah.
Like if it changes your game and it is a big, big deal to what your work needs to be for what you want to do, then totally worth it. For me, 3D Coat was a game changer. Um, I know Octane and or V-Ray or any PBR um, renderer is a big deal, and that does change a lot of stuff, but it doesn't necessarily you have to just see for what you want to do, and is that worth it? The
Yeah.
cost advantage of expanding your workflow into a whole nother thing. Are you going to be able to get that much more out of it? That's, to me, that's how I answer the question of, should I pick that new thing up, should I learn it? Well, something again like something like Keyshot or something like Octane, for example, what's the advantage there? Well, um, as we know, in a lot of programs, displacement maps can be expensive. They can be tricky. They can be tough to. It can be tough to get those to not bog down your system, whatever depending on the 3D program you're using.
Yeah.
And in Octane, it's really easy to use those. They don't take up a ton of memory and doesn't take up geometry, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And you can pick the time of day, part of the things that are very difficult to do otherwise. It makes
Hmm.
them much smoother. So then, yes, then now it is worth it. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I've noticed that when you use Octane, and that's specifically standalone. Like if you use the plugin, it's a different story. But if
I
you
hate
use,
the plugin, dude. I
yeah,
hate it.
but the standalone is super fast when it comes to displacement maps. Like they are popping on the screen like immediately. That's
Yeah,
one
it's
of the
crazy.
advantages. Yeah, because
Messing
normally,
likes it for the standalone for Cinema 4D is supposed to be sorry, the plugin for Cinema 4D is supposed to be good. Messing says
yes,
he likes it, but for Moto it sucks, dude. I hate it. I hate it for Moto. I wish I wanted to like it. I wanted to like it so bad, but I really don't. And it's just maybe they let it go too early. It wasn't ready yet, or I don't know. But the standalone
yeah.
rocks.
I'm thinking about Cinema 4D, like seriously thinking about Cinema 4D, because the new changes. So hear me out. Like I don't know if you've seen the new version, but you know, like in Moto, where you have those volumetric selections,
Mm-hmm.
like you can select whether it's like linear or spherical or even like map based volumes, and whether it's like objects or like layers, all the layers or one layer or polygons or vertices. Like you can choose different kinds of selections, and then based on the volume you can like twist, rotate, move, that kind of stuff, which is like extremely powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 3ds Max can do that too, but you have to like start playing with like different modifier stacks, and it just becomes really tricky. It's like almost every software can do that, but it's become tricky. Like you have to put some extra steps to make it happen. Now, apparently, with the new release of Cinema 4D, it's there. Like it's actually very similar um to what Moto does, and also they have like in Moto you have this mesh mixer. How would you call this mesh mixing thing where it's like
The mesh
booleans?
fusion? Is
Yeah,
that what you're
mesh
talking about?
fusion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like that
exactly.
Boolean thing.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
added that to Cinema 4D natively as well, but
Hmm.
it's more like real time. It's less convoluted because it's changing the. It's crazy because it's changing it to like a volume instead of a geometry. So I guess for video games this is pretty useless, but because it's changing it for volume, you can add like those crazy operations like MoGraph operations on top of it,
Hmm.
and it's just like becoming like super powerful, super powerful. Uh,
That's
I've
cool.
I've been I've dabbled with Cinema 4D because like some of you guys on the chat are mentioning that it's pretty easy to learn. Yeah, it's very easy to learn, and I'm really considering to switch. I'm considering to fucking switch to iMac.
What about Blender? What do you think about Blender?
um
A lot of people are getting on the Blender train right now.
Yeah, so everything I've seen so far when it comes to Blender, I haven't seen anything that I cannot do already in 3ds Max. So question is, and every single person I ask, and I know there's a new Blender coming out, which is apparently have better UI. It's easier to learn, easier to digest. But again, like it's gonna take me at least a week to learn it, to like learn it and use it, and I would say another month of usage to actually get proficient enough to be on par with what I do with 3ds Max.
Hmm.
So let's say all in all, it takes you about, even if it takes you a week and a half of learning it full time, right? That already makes it not worth it for me. Like in the
Yeah.
long run, I know it's
Yep.
free. I know it's free. But
That's the big one for people, I think. It's
I
free.
know, but there's I think there's a diminishing point in which you're making enough money to afford the software you're using, and then because your rate is high enough for the work you do based on clients you have, time becomes money. Like time becomes more valuable than the cost.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if you're doing it for a living, that
Yeah,
becomes a deduction. Like that's something that you should be spending money on things that are for your business because it actually is. There's a tax benefit to that rather than just spending money on things that have nothing to do with your business. So if it is for your business, then I mean, spending a little bit of extra money to get what you want, you can make that argument pretty easily.
yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard argument to make though for somebody who's just starting out, who doesn't have any
I
money
agree.
yet, and they don't have the rate, and they don't have the saving or the whatever, and it really does come down to dollars and cents. Well, that's their market, that's who
Yeah,
they're going after. So
yeah.
I get both sides of it for sure.
I think it's a good option if you're just starting. Like if you haven't used 3D software much at all. I know it's more than capable to be used in the industry. It's being used in video games a lot these days. It's being used in film a lot as well. I remember I was getting like Blender assets from directors already. It's
Hmm.
like I don't use Blender, dude. Like, oh, okay, we'll send you OBJs. Um, Maya is like a standard for video game studios and VFX studios, right?
Yep.
But outside of that, and again, like if you work in a video game studio, it's obviously great to know Maya, but it's not necessary, I would say.
And I suck at Maya.
Yeah,
I don't know anything. I know how to export stuff and make an OBJ out of something, but that's about all I do.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Of all the 3D programs, I definitely wouldn't choose that one to be my one. I mean, it's
Well,
powerful. It's super powerful, but the
yeah,
UI is a mess compared to like something like 3D Max.
yeah,
3D Max is pretty slick. Blender is even pretty slick. Moto is obviously the most like it's very simple compared to some of those other ones, but
yeah. I would say Moto and Cinema 4D are like the easiest by far
oh
because
really?
they are almost identical in the function way
Hmm.
because you're basically have everything on layers, and it's pretty much feels like extension of Photoshop.
Mm. I honestly, I
No,
barely
Max
even
UI
use.
sucks, dude. I'm just
Oh, does
applying
it?
to yeah. Max UI is freaking horrible.
Mm.
I hate it.
I've never used it. I just looked at it and I thought, it doesn't. Well, I remember when you were sitting when you sat right next to me and you were learning it. I remember watching you learn it and kind of thinking like, it doesn't look so bad. It looks better than Maya to me,
I think it's
anyways.
better than Blender. I haven't played with Blender enough. I've the most horrible thing about Max's and Maya's UI, and Max in particular, is that they keep adding those amazing features that slow down the program, and they're like scattered all over the place. Like you're gonna have like the same edit tools in like four different places, which is completely stupid. Like
Yeah.
if they just sit down and make a release that just basically, hey guys, we just basically removed redundant shit, it would probably make the program run like 20 times faster. Like for reals.
Hmm.
For reals. The one thing I love about Max, and obviously outside of using V-Ray with this, because V-Ray and Max is like the perfect combo, um, is the modifier stack. The modifier stack is awesome. But then again, like Cinema 4D has the same principle, Like you're
Hmm.
basically nesting something in something, and then you can nest that thing in something else, and it just becomes like a almost like a modifier tree, which allows you to modify and change the behavior of your mesh or particles or whatever that would be. That's pretty good. But you're still with Moto though, right?
I am because I barely even use. I model some things, but I barely even use it. I make most of my stuff in 3D code. I sculpt a lot of stuff,
Mm,
and I kind of use the 3D program more as a way to place it, put some lights in, kind of get my composition down, and then if you want, you can just import it into Octane where it can handle crazy amount of geometry, have no issues. You can instance stuff if you want to put like millions and millions and millions of polys and you get the physically based lighting. I mean, I don't see like for me, Moto is more just to figure stuff out, to place some things because it's just super easy to use and just
mm,
very friendly to use in that way. And especially with the newer Moto, it's I just got Moto 12 and the viewport is much more optimized and it has a lot more stuff now that it never did before. And they try to improve it slowly but surely. But
sure.
honestly, I'd rather make stuff in 3D code, dude. It's just like it's too good. It's just too. I think it's really. I really like using it a lot. I like sculpting stuff. Like to me, it's more intuitive than
Yeah,
traditional
you
modeling.
guys jumped on that 3D code train. I need to try it out because I've seen some really good stuff done with it. I'm just
Well,
curious if it's worth for me already if I already know like ZBrush and Fusion 360 and all of those.
oh, probably not. If you already know those, I mean,
Yeah.
ZBrush is more powerful. There's no debate. I mean, it's more powerful. But for somebody that doesn't know ZBrush and doesn't really want to deal with that UI that ZBrush has, which is real weird, and the logic is real weird.
Yeah.
Maybe it's getting better, but to me, when I looked at ZBrush and I saw some people using it, I was never attracted to the U. It looks like more. It looks like it's more of a pain in the ass than it should be
It
for what
is.
it is.
It's
It
pretty
shouldn't be,
horrible, dude.
because when you use 3D Coat, you realize that it is everything works exactly the way you think it should.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And that to me just turned me on immediately. I saw Jama doing that stuff and I was like, dude, give me that shit right now because I could do so much
Get
with
you
it.
chubby.
You know what I mean? And I'll sit there during lunch and if I'm not going to lunch, I'll sit there and I can sculpt a whatever, like a temple or a spaceship in
Hmm.
like an hour and like it's done,
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah.
Like try to do that in any regular 3D modeling program, it's just not, forget about that, dude. You're never gonna, it's just not possible.
I guess
And it's
like
fun. It's just makes it easy.
yeah, I guess like medium Oculus Medium would be the easiest, like probably the easiest way to sculpt, but it's like it's getting there. Uh, but yeah, I would say I've seen I've watched Jama's class. I've seen some other people doing some crazy stuff. Aton was showing me some of his work done with 3D code.
Yeah.
It is looking really easy. Like it's just damn, like super quick to set things up. I'll
Yeah,
be curious. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
for my ArtStation master class, I had this old robot that I was messing around with way back, like years ago, and I just kind of liked I had an idea. I wasn't able to model it because it was just too much.
Mm.
Um, at the time when I was trying to make it. And I opened up the model when I was learning 3D code. I'm like, what do I have to fuck with? And I opened it up and then I literally just finished it like in no time. Without it, like within the first week of knowing 3D code, I just finished it. And
Yeah.
all my questions had been answered. All my concerns about like how do I do this or how do I do this? It though, especially the way I think like a painter, because everything to me comes back to like painting, and it
Hmm.
merges the idea of modeling and painting kind of into one. And to me, that was the thing that I realized, whether it's hard surface or organic stuff, whether I want to make a temple that's destroyed and has collapsed, or if I
Hmm.
want to make a super sci-fi spaceship bridge, whatever, an entire city, like I can do anything in there, and then I can export it, pull it into Modo, figure out what I want to do, and then I can just render it really quick or whatever.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, I might try it. Might try it. We'll see. It's too much shit. Too much shit to learn, dude.
I think, and we talked about that because everyone's annoyed right now because Robbie's using Redshift and Aton's using, some people are using Maya and some people are using Modo and some people are hating on Modo, saying like, only amateurs use Modo. What are you doing? And honestly, fair enough. It's like it's really just everyone's opinion. Like just
Yeah,
pick
it's true.
one. It doesn't matter what you use. Pick one and use it. There's somebody who's really dope that uses one of those. There's somebody out there that uses any one of those that's really good. So just pick one and just stick and just use it. It doesn't matter which one, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Like all of them are capable. It same goes to renderers. If you really dive deep, like really deep, then you'll start to see differences. Like for instance, if you want to render like super realistic faces with like amazing subsurface scattering, like your weapon of choice obviously is going to be Arnold.
mm,
um you know V-Ray has some amazing features that Octane is lacking, but then again, like in Octane you can, as you said, like you can set up displacement maps real quick, and certain qualities to the render of Octane are very unique to Octane, and they like almost out of the box it already looks good. It's almost like a perfect tool for concept artists because you can render something real quick without too much of a setup, and it gives you out of the box, it gives you better quality than say like a basic setup with V-Ray.
hmm Yeah, it
um
already has that nice spec, and the materials are kind of glossy. It kind of just
yeah.
has a slick look to it. It may not be the look that you want, but it looks
Yeah.
pretty good right away.
Yeah. So it's an argument to be made. Like if you want to specialize in something, then yeah, okay, like that makes a lot of sense to then narrow down to specific things. But what's funny about all of this is, and it sort of applies to what you're doing and your class, what is your class teaching. And what I found myself doing more and more is going back to roots, to drawing, to foundation, and just having fun with it. And believe it or not, I find more work coming from the stuff that is related to more traditional approach to work. The more
Interesting.
the more crazy I get with like 3D and renders and all that kind of stuff, it attracts certain clients, but it's not that many of them because I'm not on the level. I would have to really spend a lot of time to learn to that very specific level. Like you would have to be Vitali on Vitali's level of creation of 3D models and quick renders and like making shit look like it's Skynet building its own headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to get that notoriety from clients. And you can try in those directions. Usually it's going to attract like the film industry mostly and
Mm-hmm.
VFX industry. And what really boggles down when you work in those industries, just like, yes, you're doing this very unique thing with the render, but at the end of the day, you'll almost always going to combine that with photo bashing and very quick turnaround work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is how it is. But yet, like I'll tell you, from all the Showtime stuff I've been posting recently, I had probably the most fun projects in a while with those. From the clients that saw the work that I've done for Showtime and were interested to do something in those lines. Like the Nike project, for instance, was one of those where I could just go wild with like cool designs. And obviously I had some restrictions and how to do stuff, but I had a ton of fun
Mm-hmm.
doing that, and it was more going back to the roots almost.
Yeah.
Um
I get tired of it. I mean, just doing super like realistic stuff all the time or doing stuff where like rendering is the focus. Like I just get tired of it and I realize like I need to do traditional kind of stuff because it's kind of like in my soul, that's where I started. And, like when I was a kid, whatever, teenager, whatever you want to call it.
mhm.
And it balances things out. I love doing the finished rendered stuff where you're really trying to go balls to the wall and have a finished dream of what this world could be and really sell it with the rendering and the finish. That's super fun. But at the same time, man, I love just having no limitations, no guidelines. It doesn't need to be finished. It doesn't need to be anything other than
Yeah,
whatever I want, and then just having fun with that. I don't know. There's a lot to be said for that too.
I agree. Yeah, like when you keep your work more loose, so you're playing with the ideas um and you're not being boggled down by technicalities, like it
Hmm.
doesn't just turn into this another uh thing where, like, the most frustrating thing about learning new software and applying it to work is when something goes wrong and you're on the deadline and you have to troubleshoot. It's like,
Yep.
what the fuck? It's like, I really don't want to deal with that.
No, it's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's just a reality of working in an industry that requires some kind of technology, or you're always a slave to the technology of some kind. With the renders not working, or you just like anything, you could do a Boolean three times and each time get a different result or something, and you don't know why it's doing that or whatever. You realize like, oh, I need to freeze the object because the displacement maps are not mapping correctly to the thing or whatever it is, and it's just some dumb thing that you're like, well, that's just the dumbest. Things just should work. It shouldn't be always this guessing game of why things don't work. And that's the frustration of using 3D or using rendering software. But the upside obviously is you just get really sick looking work
Yeah.
out of it. But it's you go and you sketch, you bring your pen, you bring your paper, and you go have a coffee or a beer or whatever, and you just like, you don't have anything to figure out. You just have to focus on what was I doing last time? How do I not make those mistakes again? And how do I better my skill set if that's what you're trying to do? Or maybe you don't think and you just go and do whatever you hell you feel like, and you don't even think about anything. It's, to me, that makes me rejuvenated and like energized again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, like you're that the best part of doing work where you're actually flowing the most and getting most focused and and really happy with what you're doing is when you're actually like having fun with it,
Yep.
and not getting frustrated. I'm doing this posters with Ash. We're doing like a collab with Showtime and Lost Boy.
Yeah, I saw that. That's sick, dude.
Yeah, we're gonna have the first two posters released very soon. We're gonna start selling those very soon. But I'll tell you, like the conversations we sometimes have, because those are like a mixture of 3D and 2D. Like we're using some of the tricks that I've learned and some of the tricks that Ash has learned. My 3D shader, all of that goodies. But there are moments where we have to dive into those technical problems, and nothing kills the vibe the more when we have to do that. Like when you have to go into Marvelous Designer or DAZ 3D and something just doesn't work, for whatever reason. Like there might be a minor bug or something, or you forgot how to do a specific thing, which is might be super easy, but once you forget, it becomes really difficult.
Hmm.
And then it just becomes this huge technical issue where it's like, fuck. Like, I almost don't want to do that anymore and just go back and draw. It's gonna look worse, probably less 3D or something, less three dimensional. But like just that sketching, going into sketching and drawing, just sounds more fun.
Well, what I do is like when the program starts giving me trouble, what I'll do is I'll take it as far as I can without too many speed bumps. And then once it starts giving me trouble, I'm like, all right, well,
Just
I'm done
drop
with
it.
that. I'm gonna just start doing like you said, resorting to using photos or painting or whatever it is to solve the problem. Like if that the way I added that texture map isn't showing up right or whatever it is, I'm not going to
Yeah,
spend 30 minutes troubleshooting. I'm just going to stop. And then whatever the issue is, I can fix it really fast once I go to the 2D part. Obviously, that doesn't work if you're trying to do it like 17 different camera angles or something and you can't literally fix it for each one. But if you're just trying to make a cool image to give an idea of what you want, then you can always fix stuff if you really
yeah,
need to.
yeah,
That's my process. Obviously, everyone has their own thing, and I'm certainly not the most. I'm not the person to ask about doing the most rendered work in the entire industry. I'm not that guy. You're way more than I am, but I like to do finished work that still feels like an illustration. Like I don't want
mm,
something that looks like a 3D render that just. And then there's nothing wrong with that. I just personally I don't want my work to look like that. I want it to still look like a piece of art, like an illustration. That's just my
yeah.
my thing personally.
You're really freaking good at it, dude. I remember, whenever I look at your work, and especially like towards the end of The Last of Us, and then on Uncharted 4, when I was still there, I remember like fucking almost being jealous, like how much attention to detail you put into work. Because I think I was in that mode of like learning new stuff and
Hmm.
almost like forgetting the beauty of just sitting down and playing with the details, and really making it feel like it's a painting, and sort of like sorting out issues, maybe the perspective or color or texture issues, by just thinking it through foundation and like just regular illustration techniques.
Hmm. You used to do that a lot. I remember you used to do that so much. Like you would go out of your way, like even though you could use a photo of a tree, you'd like photo bash something, and then you'd make sure to like get the painting part going like full on.
Yeah,
You'd never, like you'd go, it just spend the extra time. Like you could have just left it alone, but like you didn't. You just went all the way with it, and that's how all those badass pieces from like 2011, 2010, like that stuff that was super, that was like a dynasty, I would say. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
a dynasty. That's
Michael
funny.
Jordan in
That's
the
funny.
90s.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I feel a need to get back to that a little bit. Like I've been dabbling with that idea recently, but then there's also those new endeavors that always excite me, and my work is constantly changing. I'm looking at where it started to where it is now is like a palette that is constantly changing colors.
Yep.
There's something fun about that, especially like with the Showtime stuff. Like once I got like a really good understanding of what that is and how I can make this to be very unique art by itself. Like that's what got me really jazzed. Now like doing the posters with Ash, it's just super fun. because like literally creating your own worlds and also your very own, obviously inspired by different techniques and medium like mangas and animes, all that kind of stuff, but still very unique and very own.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool about what you guys are doing is that it looks like straight up manga, but you're not doing it the way everyone else would do it. You're doing it your way, which is,
Yeah.
coming up with these complicated shaders and cool rendering techniques, and then you can draw over it or paint over it or do whatever you want at the end of it. But you're setting it up. You're doing it in a revolutionary way, I would say. That's the main thing I would say.
Trying.
You're trying.
I gotta get back
It's
to
all you can do.
sketching though.
Yeah, it's fun, but if you got a job to do, if you got the task at hand, then
Yeah.
you got to keep kicking ass on that.
So let's go back to your class, dude. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Since it's been out for a while. You already had a mentorship session with your students, right? Like the
Yes, I
first
did.
one.
Yeah,
How did you enjoy that one, dude?
I really like it. You get a real mixed bag of different students with different backgrounds. And the thing that I like about my class is that you get people from the illustration from an illustration background. You get people from 3D background that want to learn how to design stuff better. You get people who want to do concept art, but they want to like improve they're doing quick sketch games so that they can figure ideas out before they
Hmm.
go into 3D. You get a big broad range of different students and different people with different kind of wants, and so I get to kind of change up my teaching style as I need to for different people. So to me, that's what's fun about that. I definitely think that there are so many different ways to approach the idea of sketching that so it's challenging for me as well. But I really like it personally. I could talk about, sketching and design foundation stuff all day, every day, because
Yeah.
to me it's not the final frontier. It's the one that never will go away. The conversation about how to come up with better designs will never end ever, because that's the thing that's behind all of the other stuff that we learn. What you and I are using to render stuff and to design stuff and to model and texture stuff right now, in 5 years we won't be using those things anymore. We'll be using something else, right? But your knowledge of like how to design cool shit will always be under that, no matter what it is, whether it's VR and we're all wearing glasses and waving wands and making like sci-fi buildings like Minority Report. That's great. Let's do it right now. I'd love that. But you have to have the thing in your head. Like you have to know how to design stuff no matter what, whatever that is. And to me, that's the thing that that's the reason why I like to teach. And that's the thing that why I like to talk about this stuff, is because that all comes down to that same conversation that we'll never stop having.
Yeah. Let's remind people when your mentorship is actually starting. It's starting next week, right? I think, if I remember. No, it's in 2 weeks.
It's in 2 weeks, I believe, and it is going to be on
Thursdays.
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesdays.
It's Wednesdays, I think. I believe it's Wednesdays. I'll have
What?
to look again,
Yeah.
but we'll post about it when it gets a little bit closer. But
Yeah.
there may be a few spots left. So if people, I don't know exactly how many, but I believe it's not full yet. But there's a few spots left. So if
Yeah.
people are trying to get on that, I would get on it soon, because once it fills up, it fills up. And
It's gonna be
we'll
8
always.
p.m. Pacific time Wednesdays, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've just noticed that that our website still has outdated data. Someone pointed it out, so we're gonna fix that as soon as possible. But yeah, guys, I will be on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. or Thursday. Actually, it says Thursday.
Oh, it does.
Mm.
It can be. It doesn't really.
Yeah, I think it's
Doesn't
gonna
really
be
matter, dude.
Thursday. I think it's
That's
gonna be
fine.
Thursday on 8 p.m. We'll just update the date because I remember we're talking about 24th, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, it's at the end of the month. That's right.
Or 23rd. Yeah, we're talking about the 23rd of August. Exactly. So yeah, guys, Thursday, 8 p.m. This is where it starts. So we still have a couple of days to get to jump on it. Yeah, it's fun. Like you have basically four meetings with your students, going over their work and all of that, and it the best. It's like it's almost all personalized in a way because every student is so different.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I mean, it's just fun to see like what is in your mind, what's the coolest thing you can think of, and what's the challenge to you, and something that you don't know how to design it yet, but you have an idea that sounds really fun, and you have all the reference, and you have examples of something like that, but you don't know how to do it. Like I want to be the one that helps you get to that goal and figure out how to do it. Because you could do anything if you break down the process simple enough. You can come up with anything, and that's what we have to do when you get asked to work on a movie and there's these crazy ideas and you're just like, oh my god, I've never had to do this before, what am I going to do? Well, that's how the process starts. You figure
Mm,
out what is a process that works for you. Like you have to be your own organizer and say like, well, how do I track down, what do I search for, how do I track down what that is, and how do I combine that with something else to come up with a unique way to say whatever they're trying to ask for. Like you
yeah,
have to every movie you're on, every game you're on, you have to reinvent what that thing is that they're asking for. So that's designing. That's what we're doing. Whether it's with a marker, a Sharpie, or you're rendering it in Octane, it's really the same thinking, just different process technically.
yeah, I agree. Do you find it interesting? Well, I mean, you've been teaching for a while, and Learn Squared is one of the places you've been teaching at. Most of your, I believe, most of your classes so far has been like in physical classes, whether it would be at Nomon or Art Center, right?
Yeah.
I think did you teach with the guys at Brainstorm? I can't remember.
I did for like for I think a year. I think I
Oh,
did for like a
nice,
year.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are fucking awesome. Like if
Yeah, I
you
love those guys, man.
if you're
I
in
really do.
LA and you want to have like personal, in class experience, and you don't want to break the bank, yeah, you would go with Brainstorm and John Park's
Oh
school
my God, John Park
and
and
James Pake. Yeah,
James, man, they'll show you how to step your game up real quick.
yeah. For everyone else, Learn Squared obviously is the place to go.
Yeah. Well, for online, I mean, it's a great system. It's 4 weeks. It's not as big of a commitment in terms of time. Like other people, if they're like, I have a thing going on, I can't spend 12 weeks doing a class. Well, it's 4 weeks, and we go pretty hard for 4 weeks, but then you get all that content, and you get to look it over and listen to the
Yeah,
videos, watch the videos over and over again, and let that stuff sink in, which it takes more time, to let it sink in. But
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, what we're trying to do here is, make sure that when you get to purchase the course, like you're getting not only like the the best quality we can provide, but also sort of like make you not to look around for alternatives if we can. It's sometimes successful, sometimes not. It all comes down to what kind of class is it going to be, but that's what we're striving for. With the courses. I knew like, dude, when we're gonna create this class with the sketching, it's gonna be dope because you're perfect at it. I don't think you had sketching class done before.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
This is the only sketching class I've ever done, and I've always wanted to do one, but there's just never been the right place to do it. There's not really been a need for that, or the school didn't want it. So
Mm,
they wanted me to do something else, like more of like a rendering thing, or portfolio development or advanced
right.
concept design or whatever it is. Like I love teaching everything, but this was like my thing that I've been thinking about for years to do.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Well, I'm glad it worked out. So
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty dope. I watch all the classes that we have, obviously for just get to know what kind of class we're doing, but also a little bit of a quality control, all that kind of stuff. And it's
hmm
just like always like I have the access to all the knowledge in the world right now. It's kind of crazy and no time to actually like go in details and actually learn that stuff.
Oh,
It's
I
kind
know,
of it's
because that's the curse, man, of being a busy dude.
yeah. I'm trying to unbusy myself. I wonder if that's gonna ever work out, but
I think you'll get there. I think you'll
yeah,
get there.
maybe I will. I just have to say no to things.
That's
That's
what
the
I'm doing.
problem.
I had to start doing that in order to do any personal work at all. Like I wasn't able to do any for years because I was like doing every bit of freelance and every bit of everything that I could because I wanted to save money and I was trying to go as just see how far I could push it. And then
Mm,
eventually I realized like, dude, you don't have any time for your own stuff. Like
yeah.
that's not right. That's not right either.
It's the worst, man. And you probably have it too. Like the busier you get, the more you want to do your personal stuff and find yourself like finding, oh, like why am I learning this new thing where I have like 10 projects waiting for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You get guilty. You feel like like when you're working on anything for yourself, you feel guilty. You're like, oh, well, there's this because I worked on this. That means I'm gonna pull an all-nighter now because I did my own thing, and that I don't have now. I have to do a crazy mission to get my work done
Yeah. I
instead of
hate that,
just like
dude.
you should be allowed to just do whatever you want for a minute, just cause you've earned it. You've done this. You've done enough work for long enough. You should be able to just express or explore some ideas and not have a deadline. I do the best work when I'm just like, nah, I'm just gonna do it when I feel like doing it,
Yeah.
and it'll be sick, whatever it is, and then I just feel happy about it, and it makes me feel good. But when you have a deadline and people are putting constraints on it, sometimes you pull out really rad stuff, but you you're never going to be as free as like when you actually don't care.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Um, Question. So as you were doing that, because I found something very interesting about when you're doing a lot of work for a long time. Did you find yourself like the moment you decided, okay, it's time to stop. I'm gonna focus on my own work. I'm not gonna pick any freelance for now. Did you find yourself like any time you wouldn't do extra work, feeling like I'm kind of lazy?
Of course, you get addicted to it. You get addicted to it.
Yeah.
It's like the first day, I always liken it to, it's like the first day of summer break after school. You feel like something's wrong. Like you're done with all your finals, you're done with all your work, there's no homework, and you
Yep.
feel like the world is just somehow not correct. Like something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. You're just addicted. You're used to doing all that work, so you think something's wrong, but it's not.
It's totally
That's
true, dude.
that's what I think about
Like
that.
I had the last week. The last week was crazy because I got sick, and I was sort of like trying to figure out what kind of work I'm gonna do because like one of the projects that I was working on just ended abruptly. It's just like the way it is. Some projects end like that. So
Hmm.
I found myself with like a lot of time on my hand. And I never felt so lazy. And even though like last week, I actually did quite a lot of work with like different clients. And I actually did your regular amount of work. I still felt like, my God, like I'm so lazy. It's just because like when you're working extra time, and I know it's a good problem to have when you can pick up more projects and make more money. But the reality is like once you get over that hump of feeling amazing and happy about the new project and feeling that craze of creating something new, the reality of work kicks in, the deadlines that are there in front of you, and you finish your dinner and this is not end of the day. It's just
Oh no, it's
starting.
the start of the day. Yeah.
It's like, fuck. And you're like getting super stressed, and sometimes how it is, sometimes like you get power outage, or you have to run like an errand or something, and it just takes away time that you have planned for work. That's the worst, because then it's
Yeah.
like you're getting super stressed and it just becomes really unhealthy. And once you're
Mhm.
done with this, you're missing it. That's sort of like um the irony of it,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, fuck
It's
that,
true,
dude.
man. I don't know. I'm trying to not do that anymore. I'm trying to get away from that a little bit because I think it wears down on you, man. You get burned
Yeah,
out. You get really burned out, and then you're really not doing your best work when you're burned out because you just can't. Your
yeah,
brain is like, "Fuck you. I'm not doing anything. I'm making you take a break even if you're trying to push."
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it's not good in the long run. But
yeah.
sometimes when duty calls, you gotta go for it and you gotta get the work done sometimes.
Do you ever find yourself taking too much work and then regret, like not only regretting it because you were just too tired to do it all, but also just like getting on the wrong side of the clients because you just didn't have enough attention to them?
Um, I don't know. I mean, they didn't say that, but maybe
Yeah,
they thought it. Like they wouldn't say like, Aaron, you're not putting in the work or you're not doing quality work. They may have thought that, but I never heard anyone say that. But I know for sure that some jobs that I've done, freelance jobs, I just didn't. My brain just didn't have enough energy to put as much work into it as I normally would if it was like if I was fully charged. And that's just getting burned out. That's like
yeah,
anybody. So
yeah.
yeah, I've been there for sure. I've definitely been there before.
I
It's
think
not fun.
I think clients. I don't think I've got uh, any email like that. Was like I'm not getting enough. Um, maybe I don't remember at least. Maybe I did. Um, but that was like mostly true to. I think I did it. I did once, but that was like when I was working one job and it was a misunderstanding.
Mm.
Um, uh, but yeah,
They're
like
like,
clients normally don't tell you. Like they will just. I think I'll be honest with myself. I think I had at least one or two projects where I feel like I'm never gonna work with that client again, and I don't think they were pretty happy with the project.
mm.
Because I just didn't have that full attention. I'm pretty sure I had a project or two like that. So I just decided not to do that anymore.
Yeah, it happens. It's not intentional. It's not like
Yeah,
you didn't care. It's like eventually your brain just decides to shut down for you because it
yeah,
literally can't anymore. And that's a terrible feeling, man. That's not fun. So I'm trying to be a little bit more careful about that and just not get burned out. I think that's good advice for students too, to
mm,
learn how to time manage a little bit so that you don't burn yourself out and just kind of give yourself a break a little bit. Like you need to get out and get some fresh air sometimes, like
yeah,
it's easy to lock yourself away in the cave and just do a ton of work, but eventually there's a point of diminishing returns where you're not doing any good work anymore. And when that work day becomes, well, now you're doing 10-hour days, now you're doing 12-hour days, now you're
yeah,
doing 14-hour days. Well, eventually you're not doing your 14th hour, you're not doing kick-ass work. I promise you, you're just
yeah,
not.
yeah. Agreed. I think the healthiest is to limit your regular work day to like say 8 hours, and you put extra when you need to, obviously, but
Hmm.
then give yourself the rest of the day, the reminder of that time, to focus on the things that you're not stressed about, and you can drop at any time if you're tired or not.
Yeah, certainly is nice to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
if
I
you
need
work
to
three
stop.
jobs, it's hard to work 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I've done that, and especially when you have a kid, that just becomes really terrible, decision making.
Oh yeah, I can't speak on that yet, but I can imagine that would be a difficult thing to pull off.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, this year I've been pretty mellow with work. I've been only pulling like one project at a time mostly, and then focusing on my personal work, some family stuff.
Hmm.
And it's
It's good,
been
man.
much more healthy. It's been much more healthy, but it's still like I think the scar of working overtime pretty much past couple of years, it's still there. It still makes me feel like I'm not doing enough or being too lazy, or like even though this like you've been working with Naughty Dog for quite a few years now, but prior to that, did you have any like freelance, just straight up freelance work, or you were only in the studio?
No, I always did freelance work.
But did you have like a stretch where you were only doing freelance work, not the
No,
studio
no,
work? Okay.
I've always done freelance as my second thing.
Yeah. So hear me out. Like the one thing I'm missing right now, just being in that freelance world, is that stability of being in a full time job, even though it pays less. It's
Mm,
pretty granted that you're gonna get less money working on the full time than freelancing. Freelance just typically means you're gonna make more money because the rate is higher.
you mean
Um,
like your hourly rate? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
yeah, yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
of
But
course.
the
'Cause
downside of this is, even though, let's say, and there's, if you're lucky by the virtue of putting enough effort and time to develop your craft to become good enough to actually be sought by clients, um, even though you're getting the offers coming in all the time, you're always feeling like it can stop at any time, and you're always stressing out for no reason.
hmm.
Like even like I knew this. I knew like when this project stopped for me, I knew it's like, man, like one part of the brain was telling me, maybe it's time to chill out right now. The next job's gonna come in a couple of days tops, because that's how it's usually been so far. Just don't stress. Pick your jobs wisely. Don't pick like some random stuff that you later will regret. Because I've already done that. I've picked a project that I really hated doing. I still have put like all my efforts to it, but it just like really shaves some years of your life. When you do that.
Yeah.
And it's true. And right now I'm pretty happy with where I am projects wise. But there's still like in your brain there's still worry that you're doing something wrong, like why you're not picking all those jobs all together all at once. It's
Yeah,
kind of
if you're
crazy.
used to doing it, then you're gonna
Yeah.
always go back to that and think that that's normal.
Yeah, I think it's a good advice to just not like just learning to say no. I think it's the worst attribute of most not only artists but even like in business. When you try to grow and develop a business, like saying no is like the number one thing you need to learn. There's no businesses that went bankrupt because of lack of opportunities. Most of businesses go bankrupt because they try to take on too many opportunities, and then
Mhm.
never focus on the one that really matters, like your 80% principle. And same goes to freelancers. So I guess like the one advice we could give to students is just like, yeah, like if you can just focus on one thing and do it right, and don't overestimate your time, and don't put extra strains on working too much, because they're like I remember someone said this about I can't remember where I heard it about, but there was a question to a student. The student was not doing I can't remember who was talking about this. Might have been Chris Doe or someone else. I can't remember. But a question was like, I'm a student. I'm not getting you the best work, because after I'm done studying, I'll get the best work at work. And it's normally like this is the furthest from the true.
Mhm.
Because yes, you can get the experience working in the industry, you will, but that also means that you will most likely be working on a project that will require you to put a lot of effort and time, and the results of it are not going to be the best results you can get
Yeah.
most of the time, at least.
Well, you won't be able to do what you really are passionate about, like
Yeah.
exactly. Not to say that those of us that work on projects are not passionate about it. Of course, that's not true. We are all passionate about what we do, but it's not the same as being a student where you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything you can think of, that will be your project. Anything. And you'll never have that again. And until obviously, well, that's not true. You can, if you say, okay, well, I'm going to take today to do personal work, I'm not going to work. But as Maciej was just saying, for a while, uh you if you're a freelancer, that becomes a problem, because if you're not working, it means you're not making money, and if you're not making money, it means, well, how do you know if the work is going to keep coming?
Yeah, you never
Obviously,
know.
you've been very successful in your career, and you probably have a pretty good idea after 15 years of doing this job, almost, um, what the pace is for the freelance, how many offers you get, how frequently that is, how much
Hmm.
on average you make per year if you spend this many hours. Like, you have a really good way of judging that. But if somebody doesn't have any idea, and they literally don't know whether they're going to get 10 jobs this year or they're going to get one job this year, like then it's very difficult to manage that. So
I'll tell you how it is from my experience, and it's been like that for past few years, and almost to the teeth. You get 20 offers, 30 offers, 10 offers, whatever the number, a lot of offers all at the same time, and then it comes in waves, and then it stops, and then comes in waves again.
yeah.
Like with the moment you feel like you have to latch on pretty much anything you can, because now it's time to actually start working, like you're almost guaranteed that you know
More
if
shit's
you
going to
reach,
come your way.
yeah, and it's gonna be a wave of fucking few new projects.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because like sometimes sometimes you'll find yourself picking up one project and then saying no to everything else, and then what one project just stops
Yep.
because it happens. Like with films, anyone who dreams about working in film, and you know this, Aaron, a lot. You know this for
Yes, I do.
firsthand. At least 80% of films are never done. At
Yeah.
least 80%. So 80% of the work you're doing there for film might never see the light of day.
Yeah.
I've done this one project. You've seen this little fantasy kind of stuff. I've done
Oh
it like
man, that
years ago.
was one of my favorites, dude.
I've obviously I'm
Sick
not
as
gonna.
fuck.
This is my best work.
It
Like
really was,
literally,
dude.
it's crazy because it's like already 8 years old, and I'm looking at it, it's like, fuck,
So fun. Nobody will
fuck.
ever see it.
Nobody
Nobody
will
will
ever
ever
see
see
it.
it.
Yeah, because I just cannot release it.
Yeah. But it was
Um,
so dope. So cool.
I felt like wounded animals, wounded
It,
animal after this.
that yeah, that
Really
that
did.
but at least you did it, and at least you got like the way I see it is like, yeah, most of the work that we do, I just worked on a movie that I don't know that if it will ever get made,
Hmm.
and honestly, it doesn't really matter because I learned what I learned from
Yeah,
doing the
yeah,
work that
yeah,
I did. And if I wanted to do my own thing that was influenced by it, or, has nothing to do with it, but from what I learned, I could easily do that. And I could have a great time
yeah,
from just kind of playing around with those things that I was kind of excited about while working on it. So that's the way I look at it.
yeah. It's true. It's true. No, yeah. I mean, I from that experience, I took a lot. Like I've learned so much doing that because that was one of the very few projects where I the person that gave me the project and was responsible for feedback told me specifically, here's the subject matter, go.
Yeah, man.
That's
That's
it.
the best. That's why. That's why if more people did that, they would get better work because look
Yeah,
what happened. Look what happened when they did that.
yeah,
What
yeah.
they got. They got the best
Same
stuff.
thing with Ghost in the Shell, man. When I got Ghost in the Shell and I started working with Rupert, that's one of the reasons why I left Naughty Dog. Like major reason for me to leave Naughty Dog is to start working on Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah,
Um,
I
when I
remember.
got that job and I started working, and literally Rupert would just say, "Do what you feel is the best." And then obviously in certain areas he would give me feedback and tell me what to do specifically, like very specific aesthetics that he was after.
Hmm.
But I would say at least 85% of the work, it was just me. It was just me and my collaboration with all the other guys and with Ash, and with
Yep.
Vitali, and we were just like fucking jamming it, dude. That's why it's one of my favorite projects. Same thing with The Last of Us, man. Like I've learned so much by working with Bruce, and you as well. You've been there on those meetings all the time where we would just sit down and basically brainstorm to the most smallest details on how we're gonna do things, and it never felt like it's a job that comes straight from the top, and I need to listen to feedback. It always felt like a collaborative um, result. At the end of the day, where we would we would have this ability to do this amazing paintings, and obviously you would get feedback, and you would have to adhere to specifics of the location and gameplay, but you would still have that creative ability to create your best work. And
Yeah.
that's what always, in my book, Ghost in the Shell, that one project I cannot talk about, and Naughty Dog are by far my three favorite projects that I had the most creative, input into. So it's
Yeah. I
crazy.
mean, having a little bit of freedom goes a long way. Some of it's time, some of it's who's in the conversation. Do they, like you said, if it comes straight from the top or if it comes from executives, like they need to have certain things that are going to make them happy, and they can't really afford to experiment too much because they don't know if it's going to
True.
be received really badly. So sometimes the situation just it can't go down like that. But I mean, when it can, I mean, I think people should definitely try to open up some space to let people brainstorm and run wild a little bit, because you're going to just get better work. Like, the whole point is you hire people who you really like their work. Like for you, for Last of Us, they saw your work, they said, oh, he'd be perfect for Last of Us, and then let's let him run wild for a bit and see what he does. And naturally, you did stuff that was perfect for The Last of Us because your work was in that vein and you could do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's the easiest way to handle it, is to kind of just let people explore a little bit, and they're going to do the best work as a result. But we were the first ones on it, I think, in the studio. Like,
Yep.
for when
Me
I
and you
showed up,
actually.
you were the only one. Everyone else was doing Uncharted. You were the only one, and then I showed up, and then it was us, and then eventually everyone else joined like a year after that, or
Yeah.
a year and a half. But I
Yep.
remember it was just us in the beginning, and it was like whoa, it's like so open. It was so open what you could do.
Yeah. It was fun. That's one
I
of the
learned a
things I
lot.
like about Naughty Dog, man. Like you have the ability to do that. Like get the best out of you, you know?
Yep.
There's some shenanigans going on. That's normal in pretty much any game studio. You're gonna deal with that because you have to deal with pretty much everyone in the studio. You have to work with designers. You have to work with animators, programmers, all of those people, and everyone has their own opinion. And most of the time is based on like just genuine uh, effort to do something best the best of what it is in your opinion, at least, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, man. No, it's great when a studio really appreciates the creative process and understands like that with a little tiny bit of breathing room, artists can do crazy stuff. Crazy. It's like really important for a creative environment to have
Yeah.
just a little bit of space, and kind of like be accountable for your own time, be responsible. You're not going to take 6 weeks on a painting. You need to work at a pace that is reasonable. But other than that, you know that they're going to produce awesome stuff because they want to, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. All right, man. Let's jump into questions. There's a few, and then we can wrap it up after that. Dude, we've been talking for almost an hour and a half.
Yeah, yeah, I
Time is
see that.
freaking flying. All right, let's start with this one. I start to have a quite decent knowledge in illustration, and many concept artists I ask say it's definitely sufficient to get a job, but my design knowledge is lacking. Can you suggest any resources for me that would help me to improve design knowledge a lot? Anything that helped you personally? It's a very sort of personal question. I would say that it would require us to look at the work, but we could definitely distill it down to maybe like some bullet points of what in general, like doing something in general that will help you, you know.
Yeah, I would say first you have to figure out what it is that interests you the most. Are you interested in designing like sci-fi stuff? Are you interested in like animation, like shape design, like why certain artists like Alberto Mielgo or Neil Campbell Ross have such elegant designs? Like, it's more like first you have to pinpoint what it is that you want to focus on. That's really important. And once you, or is it like I just very specific. I want to learn design spaceships. All right, well, that's easy. You know who to look at. You look at some of the classics like John Berkey and John Harris, and all the people from the 70s and 80s, and then you look at Sparth, and then you look at Kang Lee, and you look at the people who do John Park, whoever people that have done badass stuff modern times, and
Hmm.
you just study their work every single day for a year or for however
Yeah,
long you
you're pretty
want.
big on studying. I remember, like, even in your class, there's a lot of studies that you do, and I remember you've been always doing the film studies, like a lot of them.
I mean, it's the most classic method. Like, look at, okay, John Park, great example.
Hmm.
John Park, if you watch him design a robot, if you watch him design a spaceship, what is he focusing on? He knows every kind of joint that there is, every kind of function and rotation, and what that should look like. If you want a joint to rotate from a ball joint, or if you want that joint to rotate, from just a regular kind of circular
Hmm.
spinning joint, what is the function of it, and how is that supposed to work? And why does he know that? Because the dude is looking at every single thing walking around, every desk lamp, every single vehicle, everything, and he's so fascinated with how stuff is put together. So he is absorbing it like a sponge when he's looking at stuff, and then that translates into his ability to design functional looking stuff. It's
Yeah.
not something that people are going to actually use, and if it breaks, someone's going to die. It just has to look like it works, which is everything we do in entertainment. And so he knows how to make stuff that looks like it works because he has a functional knowledge of how that stuff works. So that rule goes for anything. Whatever you want to learn, find the source. Where that stuff where does it exist? Well, if you want to learn cinematic compositions, you need to get obsessed with cinematographers,
Mm.
and then you'll find out that there's some common threads there if you study them and look at it. I don't mean you need to sketch every single frame that you see, but you need to get obsessed with that one thing and what's the source of what you want to design, and that's how you're going to figure it out. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's like finding your focus on what you really want to improve upon, and then just observing. Like, because design is such a large word, right? And I think, what's crazy. I don't know what you think about that in regards to yourself, but up until like recently, up until like maybe 2012, 13, I really didn't consider myself a designer. I was more like an illustrator,
Mm,
I would like to consider myself a designer, but then I looked at works of, Danny Out and G Monk and even
mm,
Ash Torp, and it's like, okay, those guys are actual designers in terms of how they put things together, how they design things, or even just like Vitali's work, that
mm-hmm.
would make sense to me. Okay, he is actually designing. Um, but then over the time, I think I've just learned the visual language enough by just sheer amount of experience to know, okay, there are certain rules when it comes to how shapes work together, what kind of colors you're supposed to put together in order to make the best result, and what kind of results you're after as well, like, are you going to put a lot of colors and a lot of contrasting colors to get a specific result, or are you just putting that because you feel like it's a good choice, you know
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
once you understand the foundation, it all comes back to foundation again. Once you understand the foundation, uh and you apply it to your work, you start to understand a little more about each of the aspect of that foundation. And I guess the foundation for design would be function. Like, what is the
yeah.
function of things? Yeah. Second question. Yeah, there was a question about your mentorship, when it starts. It's gonna be August 23rd, on 8 p.m. That's Thursday. There was also a question about standalone render better than plugins. Yes, it's for Octane. Standalone is probably better than most of the most of the Octane plugins. Even for 3ds Max,
Mm.
Octane is kind of meh. It
Oh
works
yeah,
well. It works well, but it's missing some of the functions. Like for Cinema 4D, it's probably the best implementation, I would say.
yeah.
And you said like Steve Messing is a great example of that. He's
He
just
swears by the plugin for Cinema 4D. He
yeah,
swears by it. He does crazy stuff in there. But all you have to do is, if you use Moto, just open up the plugin and then open up the standalone, and you'll see what's going on. There's a lot of missing. There's a lot of missing stuff there.
yeah, yeah. Are you? So there was a question, and not sure if Aaron is even allowed to talk about it. But is freelance work allowed when you work for a studio? Is it typical? Uh, is it typical?
Every studio is different, and every studio has their own rules, and so you just have to ask them. And if it's not a conflict of interest, you're then generally they're okay with it. So obviously I would never work on another game. I would never work on VR. I would never work on anything because that would be conflict of interest with Naughty
Mm-hmm.
Dog. But if I worked on a book cover, they wouldn't care. That's
Yeah,
this is just I'm making I'm not saying specifically, I'm saying in generalities. If you use common sense and you obviously ask, generally they have no reason to stop you if it's not a conflict of interest. It doesn't affect them at all.
yeah. It really depends on what kind of studio you're in. Because I've been in studios where I was specifically told that I cannot pick up any job, especially in video games. Like, that's a big no-no.
Hmm.
And there are studios that really, literally don't care. If you are a freelancer, they cannot tell you shit.
No. No, no, no.
But
But
if you're full
if you're a
time, yeah,
staff employee, yeah, you have a contract that you've signed, and yeah, I would never work on a game. I would never work on a project that would be in competition with my studio,
yeah,
or in any way competition with the company that I work for. So Sony, any of their products. If you worked on any product that was in competition with any one of their products, then now you're in conflict. So I would just never. I just wouldn't risk it. But it's important to know what your rights are and know what you're allowed to do.
yeah,
It's okay. It's always okay to ask. They're not going to get mad at you for asking as long as you say, if they say no, then you say okay, and then you don't. You know,
yeah. I
that's it.
guess the biggest one is read the contract before you sign it, so you actually know,
Yeah,
because a lot of us don't. A lot of people just don't read contracts.
yeah, yep.
But the contracts will usually tell you, and these days most the contracts are worded in a way that it basically prevents you from working in the same industry. So if you're working in a video game, it's most likely you're not going to be able to do work for video game companies when you are at that specific company.
Yeah, it's pretty
Um,
straightforward.
they cannot. I think they cannot legally. I remember there was a discussion about that before, and I would love to hear your opinion, Aaron. But I believe there was a discussion sometime that if you leave a studio and go elsewhere, that they can prevent you from working for a specific studio for a couple of months. But I think at least in California and US, it's illegal to do that stuff.
Sounds super illegal, but
Yeah, but I
I would need to
remember
talk to
hearing
an attorney.
stories
I
like
don't know.
that. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty illegal if they say that. It would be a different thing if, let's say, if you're a programmer and you're writing code for a specific feature and then you take that code and implement it somewhere else. That is
Ex-
illegal.
that of course
Yeah.
that sounds. Yeah, I think it sounds like a specific thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there are many instances where that it wouldn't affect them at all, so it wouldn't make sense. But yeah, if you're like, you've been working on this thing and you go and you literally write the same thing somewhere else,
Yeah.
that could be a problem for them. So I understand why they would say that.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. What is the best way to get out of design habits? Example, always drawing the same kind of shapes.
uh, well, again, studies, because you're forced to do something that you didn't think of.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of doing a study, is that you don't have to come up with the idea. You're absorbing a different idea. If you absorb 1,000 different ideas than something you would have come up with, and then I tell you to now come up with your own thing, some of those ideas that you were looking at have soaked into your brain, and you're going to be using those now as your visual recall, your memory, and that's how you. It's very simple. Just stop making stuff up and start designing. Start studying from people who have already done it, and
Yeah.
then eventually you're going to absorb that information.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, to follow up the previous question, yeah, if you're reusing assets from the work that you've done already, like super sketchy, It's
Oh
one
yeah,
thing it's one thing if you're like taking a bit of a texture and applying it to completely more like completely different thing where it just becomes like derivative work, It's not exactly same thing. um that's a completely different story, but you're just like literally taking the same post character and just like changing a couple of things. That's super illegal. That will get you
yeah.
in a lot of troubles. You
Oh
cannot
yeah.
do that.
No, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and even like it will probably get you fired from your current studio because they don't want to deal with lawsuits.
Hmm.
And it
It
will
pisses
get you.
off everybody. There's
Yeah,
no reason to do that.
yeah, don't do that. Aiton actually asked the question: what skills do you see most people lack online?
um what skills? I think the skills that people, honestly, and I hate to, I always sound, I feel like I sound like a broken record when I say this, but I think people jump the gun on what their idea actually is, and they try to execute the idea. And I know Aton and I talk about this a lot. We talk about that students ask the question like, well, how do you come up with ideas? Well, I mean, it's simple. Like, we all wanted to be artists because we looked at video games, or we looked at books, or we watched movies, or we watched something that made us think about it. We're not living in a box. Like, we have inspirations from a million different things, and so many different things could be toys. Like, anything could have contributed to what gets you excited about making images. And so just go back to those things. What things do you like? it's important to do that before you even try to make art. Figure out what you actually like. What are you into? You got to be able to tell somebody what you're into, and then once you know what you're into, design something in that vein, like get inspiration from that vein. So I think that people often jump the gun and try to make an image without even thinking about what it is that they're trying to make. Like you know, anybody, like a little kid can doodle something on a napkin that is kind of like a rough idea of what it is. And if that's not enough, then go more specific. Find 3 pieces of concept art, only 3, that are like a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of this are kind of what I want. And then boom, you've got something at least, or a shot from a film, a sketch of a cool design, and then one piece of concept art that kind of has the right kind of painting style or whatever it
Hmm.
is. Like 3 things that inspire you, and then say, all right, that's my benchmark. Do not look at anything else. Just focus. For like, obviously professionals look at a million images because you're used to doing this for years and years. But if you're having trouble, limit yourself to a few things and do not put everything else away, because if you're looking at too much stuff, you can easily confuse yourself.
Yeah.
So my thing that I think is one of the biggest issues is people's ability to identify what you're into, put it right in front of your face, and be inspired by only those things for a minute, and just start fleshing out what your idea actually is before you go into rendering or go into too much effort on painting or fleshing it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost circles back to what we were talking about the software. It's the same principle, you know? Like if you're focusing on too many softwares to learn, you're gonna be confused and you'll never master any of those. So let me ask you last question and then I'll wrap it up. What is the ratio of rendered paintings to production drawings done for video game?
Um, to be honest, I do very little production. Like, so I talk about this in my this segues into the sketching anything class that I
Hmm.
have, and that is that I break down in the class three. Obviously, there are infinite different levels of finish, but I break down 3 different levels: light, medium, and heavy, of levels of finish for sketching. And there are various different reasons for doing very quick, super loose stuff because it's quick. It's fast and you can show a little bit, no detail, but you can show a lot very quickly.
Hmm.
Medium, because or obviously heavy being the obvious other end of the spectrum, where you're doing like schematics and stuff. Like you could, again, like Maciej's shader that makes stuff into line drawing, it could look like a schematic, and people used to do that back in the day because there weren't 3D programs. You have to be careful with that one because you would make it not make any sense anymore to do a drawing. If you're spending as long as it would take to make a 3D model, then it doesn't make sense to do a drawing anymore. The advantage of drawing is being fast. So you want to make sure that it's for a purpose if you're going to do
Hmm.
something that's tight. And then obviously the one in the middle, which I think is probably most what people do that do production work, is just enough information to sell the idea, but not so much where you're taking any amount of time that would be close to painting or modeling. Like it's really fast, but it's not so loose that a director wouldn't understand it. And I would say that one is probably the one that is the most common. But for me, I don't really do production drawings unless it's accompanying something that I did. For example, I'll do a painting on Lost Legacy. I did a lot of this for outsourcing. I'd do a painting, or I would take someone else's painting and I put together like an art direction sheet that we would send out, and I would do some quick drawings to explain the things, the individual elements of that painting with a few photos, and that small page expands the effect of that painting like threefold, because now you have an explanation that came with it. And the reason I could do it quickly is because I can sketch quickly. So that was the advantage of that. I wouldn't usually do a super tight finished drawing for production, because like you've seen Aton do, or like I do, you could literally sculpt a temple in the amount of, and have a model of it in the amount of time it would take to do a tight, super tight line drawing. So managing what it's for and deciding how much time you want to spend on that is very important. But I cover this in depth in the class. So I sort of answered your question in a super long-winded way. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that, but it's a obviously it's a complicated question. So
Yeah. We could make a full podcast about that.
yeah.
Almost. So, all right, let's wrap it up here. It's been a good one. Yeah, we've been almost 2 hours. Almost 2 hours. Fuck that. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna start the work for the night. As we were just talking about, don't overload yourself with work. And here I am about to start work at 10:30 at night like an asshole. So there you go.
Well, good luck with that. I got some work to do tonight as well, so you're not alone with that. So
Okay, man. We'll be together in spirit, like
we'll
like
be
the
together in
hologram of
spirit.
Yoda. Like Yoda and
Exactly.
Obi-Wan.
I'll be thinking about you when I'm doing my work for
Thank you,
sure.
man. That gives me great comfort.
I'll be sending the signals. I'll be sending the bad signals. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Again, a reminder: Aaron's mentorship is open. It's going live on August 23rd. That's Thursday, August 23rd. The first session will be held at 8 p.m. So you guys still have time to pick it up if you want to learn directly from Aaron. Otherwise, his class is obviously still out there. If you want to pick it up, that's great. It's freaking awesome. And yeah, we'll make this stream available on YouTube very soon. So look out for that as well. I hope to have it done this week as well. So definitely you can rewatch it later. All right, guys. Wrapping up here. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being with us tonight, today, or this morning, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you next time.
Thank
Peace.
you for everybody who asked questions and participated, and thank you for everyone who tuned in. I appreciate it.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, guys. Take
Thank
care.
you.